What's up, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be giving you the top 5 best attackers for Operation Solar Raid. Let's get into the video. Number 5 is going to be Zero. Now, Zero is actually a very good solo queue operator. If you do have a coordinated team that can watch your cameras whenever they die, he's even better. But even just for solo queue, he has so much potential because of the versatility of his gadget. Speaking of versatility, if we go into his loadout, he has the option between his own assault rifle and the MP7. Both are pretty good weapons, but personally, I like to run his assault rifle just because of the 2x scope and because it seems like it just is a better weapon in my hands. I don't really know why. And then for the secondaries, he has the 5.7 USG or the Gon 6. Personally, I would run the Gon 6, especially just because it's an explosive gun, right? It can get deployable shields, and you can pair your Zero cameras to be able to get any utility on those shields to then be able to have nothing in the way of your Gon 6. So that's pretty cool. And then he also has claymores or hard-reaching charges. Now, if you have a coordinated stack that can actually watch your flank camera so that you don't have to worry about flanks, then there's no reason to bring claymores. If you're also not going to be on a balcony and you're not really worried about getting ran out on, then again, you don't really need to play claymores. So I would personally run hard-reaching charges. Now, if you are worried about runouts and you are worried about flanks because you don't have teammates that can provide cover for either, then I would bring claymores. But for most cases, I would bring the hard-reaching charges. That being said, again, the prime loadout would be the AR, the Gon 6, and hard-reaching charges for me. But other than that, his actual Argus launcher, the actual ability that he brings, is very, very good. It's good again for watching flanks if you shoot them in very hard to see spots where defenders can't really see them. But because they also have a taser on them, it's very good for clearing at utility. You can shoot these below or above walls that have bandits or cades on them, and you're easily able to destroy the utility on there. Now, actually, I wouldn't recommend using that as his primary usage because there are people like Thatcher or anybody with EMP grenades for that matter that does that job but more efficiently. This is due to the fact that people can just shoot his Zero cameras whenever you deploy them through a surface. So trying to use it to open walls is probably the last way that I'd play him. I would use him more as cameras for your flanks, or I would use them to burn ADSs or Wamai discs again so that you can put your Gon 6 onto somebody's deployable shield and help clear out the site faster. With that being said, Zero is a great utility powerhouse for solo queue, and I definitely recommend that you pick him up. Coming into my number 4 spot is going to be Flores. Flores, again, is a utility powerhouse. He has 4 explosive drones. You can think of him essentially as just having 4 frag grenades that you can move wherever you want to. The only real counter to him is Mozzie and Mute. Other than that, he is pretty unbeatable in terms of being able to destroy so much utility. If you're playing on a map like Oregon, where there's guaranteed to be a deployable shield, barbed wire, and Malusi gadgets, you can easily get rid of all of that with 1 or 2 drones and still have more drones left over to explode walls and other utility that may need to be destroyed. So he's very good for clearing at utility, especially in a gun skill meta where the one thing that can separate like a winning gunfight from a losing gunfight is information and utility. You being able to negate that is very, very powerful. Like I said, he really only has 2 counters in the entire game, so playing him is extremely viable. If you go into his loadout, he actually has a pretty good loadout. He has the AR-33, which is Thatcher's gun, 41 damage, a 1.5 times scope, and almost no recoil. This is a very good gun, especially if you're new to the game. And then he also has the SR-25, which is a DMR that does 61 damage with every scope in the game, like every other DMR. So a pretty good loadout selection there. Personally, I would run the AR-33. Then he has the GSH-18, which is a pretty good pistol, as well as flash grenades or claymores. Like I said, if you're not worried about flanks, you're not worried about runouts, always bring the flash grenades. They can burn utility, they can flash players for easier gunfights, and overall have a lot better of a use than claymores do. So personally, the best loadout in my opinion is the AR-33, his pistol, and flash grenades. Overall, just like Zero, he is a utility powerhouse, and if you play him, you're going to always get value out of him if you know how to play him. Coming into my number 3 spot is going to be Yana. Yana is probably one of, if not the best entry fragger in the entire game right now because of the pure amount of utility that she brings. Something that makes a good entry fragger is somebody that's able to get information and somebody that's able to explode bulletproof utility. Yana is able to do both of these very efficiently. She has frag grenades for exploding utility, and she has her Yana clone for infinite droning, which is very, very good information. If you go into her actual loadout, she also has 2 very good weapons. She has an ARX, which is one of the best assault rifles in the entire game, second or third to the AK that comes on Ace and Fuse, of course, and then she also has the G36C. Now, if you want something with more ammo, low recoil, and a 1.5 times scope, the G36C is for you. But if you want something with more damage, almost no recoil, and you're able to manage having a low ammo count gun, the ARX is for you. Now, back when she had her Gon 6, almost everybody was running her G36C because you needed all the ammo you could get due to you not having a secondary gun. Now, you don't really have a choice in terms of having a secondary gun, so people are starting to run the ARX a lot more, although they did take away her 1.5, so I personally run the G36C. Again, one of those loadouts where it's just personal preference. You can really pick either or because both of these guns are so good. And then again, she has frag grenades, right? There's only 4 people in the entire game that have frag grenades. It's Yana, Glaz, Nock, and Sledge. So now that there's only 4 people with frag grenades, they're very, very valuable, and anybody that brings them is going to be very good naturally just because of how rare these grenades are. That being said, using her for solo queue is a very viable option because a lot of the times you can't depend on your teammates to get information for you. You can't depend on them to drone for you. You can't depend on them to put cutoff cams for you. And you also can't depend on them to get kills. She can do all of this by herself. Even with her Yana replicator, it's more efficient than droning because you can really only drone one room at a time. With Yana's clone, you can sprint and drone much more efficiently, much faster, and drone multiple rooms at a time. And it also creeps out defenders because it kind of looks like an actual person, and people will more than not peek you and try to shoot you thinking that you're a real player, which in turn will give you more information that you can swing off of or get kills off of. Also, because she has infinite droning with her Gemini replicator, you can use her actual drones as cameras, and you can make a lot more risky plays with those drones because you don't really need to worry about them getting destroyed or shot due to you having infinite droning in the first place. So you don't really need to worry about droning carefully, and that's a very good crutch for newer players who don't really know how to drone properly. So she's newer player friendly, she's very good, she has a very high skill ceiling, and she's just a utility powerhouse, which makes her very good, and that's why she's the third on my list. Now, I've been absolutely hyping her up, and if you actually heard what I said earlier, she was the #1 best entry fragger in the entire game, but there's still 2 people above her. Now, how can there be 2 people above her? I'll explain. Coming into my number 2 spot is going to be Lion. Now, Lion isn't an entry fragger, but is still probably better than Yana ever could be because he just brings that much more utility. Let me explain. Not even talking about his primary ability, let's just go into his gun selection. He has the V308, which is a very good assault rifle. The recoil's easy to control if you have on a flash hider and you have on a vertical grip, and if you're really only running the 1.5 times scope. It also has a drum mag of 50 rounds, and it does 44 damage, so a pretty good AR. The only thing really holding it back is its rate of fire, but he also has the best shotgun in the game, the SG CQB shotgun, which comes on all of the other French operators. This thing has a lot of range, a lot of damage. The only thing that's really making the shotgun bad is the reload time, but other than that, it's pretty solid. And then he also has the 417, which is a very good DMR. So already the weapon selection is great. And then his secondary guns, he has 3, which is the revolver, the P9, and the Gon 6. Gon 6, again, utility powerhouse. You can destroy anything that's bulletproof. So like I said, what makes a good operator on attack for solo queue is being able to destroy bulletproof utility and also information. With his Lion scans, he has information, so he already has that balance that Yana has and more. He also has EMP grenades, which is very good because you can open up walls, you can disable gadgets, and do a lot more things than you would be able to do by just bringing flash grenades or claymores, right? So EMP grenades, very good, especially if Thatcher's banned, which he is 9 times out of 10. And then going into his actual ability, he has the EE1D, which is one of, if not the easiest ability to use in the entire game. You just click a button and it pings people or makes people have to sit still. But this ability has an extremely high skill ceiling with what you're able to do with it. On the pro level and in the very high ranks, people use this ability to be able to start entire pushes, because if you've droned out the area and you know where everybody is, you can essentially just scan, and then if you know they're going to sit still, you can pre-fire them because you already have information on them. It's very good for roam clearing too. If you drone out a roamer and you scan, now that roamer has to stay still, and you can take all of that space where you know he isn't, and then you can get an easy pre-fire kill onto him. If he does decide to move, well, then you have pings on him, and then you can get a good gunfight anyways. So his ability is very good, very high skill ceiling. I made a Lion guide if you want to learn more, which is in the top right now. And with that out of the way, let's get into the #1 spot. The #1 best attacker for solo queuing in Rainbow Six Siege, in my opinion, is going to be Dokkaebi. Now, I will say, if you're on console, I would probably put Dokkaebi in the last place of the top 5. Still a great operator, still in my top 5, but just because her gun selection is very hard to use on console, or if you're just a new player in general, she immediately just goes down to number 5 instead of number 1. But if you're on PC, or if you're on console and you just are good with her DMR, she is definitely number 1, and I'll tell you why. First of all, let's just go over utility. Again, the Mark 14 EBR is a very, very good DMR. Honestly, one of my favorite DMRs in the entire game. But again, it's a DMR, so if you don't know how to use it, it kinda does suck ass. Her secondary guns, however, are very forgiving. She has the SMG-12, which is very, very good. The fire rate is 1,270, which is absolutely insane, especially considering the fact that it does 28 damage with 32 rounds. And then she has the C75 auto, which is just a worse version of the SMG-12 with a little bit less recoil, 35 damage and 26 bullets. And then she has the Gon 6. Again, you can destroy bulletproof utility, which is the mark of a good solo queue operator, as well as she brings information with her utility, the logic bomb. So going into it, she also has secondary gadgets, the smoke grenades, the stun grenades, and the impact grenades. So all of these have their uses and are very, very good. Most of the time though, you're going to bring those EMPs to help your thermite or your ace get the wall open. Maybe you can bring smoke grenades if you're trying to get a plant down, or you're trying to cut off lines of sight so that you can push the site. Maybe you'll bring stun grenades if you're roam clearing. Either or, you can really bring whatever you want. She has a very versatile loadout, and it's one of the reasons that she is so good. If that wasn't enough to sell you on her being #1, I'll give you the one thing that should get you to a #1 on your list, which is the logic bomb ability. Now, on the surface level, this thing is very good for roam clearing. You call all of the defenders' phones, and you hear where their phones are, and once you hear them, you know where they are, and you shoot them. Pretty good roam clearing ability. Now, that itself is on par with Lion or Jackal in terms of being able to roam clear efficiently. But the one thing that actually sets her apart from those operators and makes her better, in my opinion, is the fact that she can get all defender cameras and deny all the defenders from using using their cameras with the click of a button. So if you use her ability correctly, you call, you kill a defender, that defender will drop their phone. Once that defender drops their phone, you can use your tablet to hack the phone and you gain access to all defender cameras. This is very, very good, especially in this meta right now. Like I said, it's a gun skill meta, and the one thing that can separate a winning team from a losing team is how they use their information and their utility to outplay and outgun the enemy team. If you're able to make defenders not able to use their cameras every time you call, you make it to where you have all of their cameras. That is a lot of information, not to mention the information you get just from the phone calls alone. And if people are playing Valkyrie, they're playing Echo, they have bulletproof cameras, they have Maestro cameras, they have Mozzie pests, they have default cameras that they're not shooting. You have a lot of information to pull from, especially if you have a coordinated team that's actually on cameras when they die, or they're just on cameras in general. This is very, very powerful. Now we can go into some counters. Mute counters her. If anybody is in a mute jammer, they don't get called, so they can actually use cameras on that mute jammer, and they won't get called when they're there. So you can have a mute jammer on the roam with your roamer so that the roamer doesn't get called and they can actually catch some people by surprise. Very good way to counter Dokkaebi there. Also, if you just shoot your cameras, you destroy your own cameras on defense, yes, you will be losing information, but it also makes it to where the attacker information isn't really valid. Even then, without all the information, we still have her loadout, which is a Gon 6 and EMP grenades, so still very, very powerful. In my opinion, her and Lion could go either way. If you like Lion more, Lion could be your number one. If you like Dokkaebi more, she could be your number one. That's just my personal opinion as a Diamond PC player. But with that out of the way, that's pretty much it for the entire video. And let me know why if you think I'm wrong about operators that I put in my list. With that out of the way, like the video if you like it, sub to the channel down below. My name's Alka, and I will see y'all in the next video. Later.